I'll burn the pancakes and probably the house too, but baby, it's stuck to me like glue.
Hey, so this is my first episode. No pressure, right? Maybe it's not my first episode. Maybe it's the third one. We're going to see. I'm having difficulty finding an editor, and I don't really know how I'm going to fit somebody in my budget to make this happen, to cut it up and make it work. And hopefully the chips will fall where they are supposed to lie, and that things will play out down the line. But I think to that point, I was pretty passionate earlier about something that happened that I wanted to share. And I think these are the real types of moments that I wanted to talk about. Things that are in detail, things that are raw, that are honest, no filter. You know, I gotta exclude names just for the privacy and protection of everybody involved. But I want to talk about some real things. And I'm not here to tell you how to live, how to think, how to be. But I would like this to be a reflection of, you hear this story and then how does that translate in your life? How you think things, what is your internal dialogue? How do you process situations or people? What is your awareness in, how you go about your life? So wanted to open up with a story that seemed relevant to me starting my first episode, which was I need to find an editor. And I noticed something, and I don't know if it's, I'm always trying to be positive, but I think deep down I'm a cynic. I'm such a cynic. And if you see me being positive, it's because I'm trying. It's because that's what I want. It's because that's what I want to see. It's what I want to be. And it's me training my brain to think otherwise, right? So I reached out on social media as a last resort because the people in my contacts didn't work out. So I reached out asking if anybody knew of an editor that either I could pay to kind of show me a little bit of the ropes, or, to also edit the first couple of episodes to kind of send it on its way, to kind of make this thing a reality and not just talk, getting out of the talking phase or thinking phase and more into the doing, the action part. Keep up my end of the bargain, show that I'm serious. And I had a cousin that reached out and was like, oh yeah, try Fiverr or try Upwork. And I was like, when did Instagram and Facebook become, try this website or service? Like, I specifically was like, hey, who in the people that are in my network of the friends, connections that I have on social media, who of you are sound engineers or know somebody who can help me with this? And I don't really get a lot of engagement. People view it, but they don't really reach out or say anything. And I think I got disappointed when he reached out, and I kind of waited all day to respond because I had other stuff going on. And I was like, oh man, I would love it if my cousin was going to all of a sudden say oh yeah, I could do it. You could pay me. And I'm like, oh yes, thank you. I'd rather pay a friend or a family member. And oh yeah, go try this website. Yeah, I know I could go pay a random stranger. That was not the point of what I was trying to accomplish. But it ended up, making me want to tell this story, right? So there was one person in my contacts that I knew specifically was a sound engineer. He specialized in audio, and my skin was crawling at the idea of reaching out to him, if I'm being honest. I would say maybe about about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I was in a different kind of place in my life, and I didn't have a lot of friends. I had a lot of people kind of leave my life. And so I kind of just willingly accepted anyone who was left in my life, not because I liked them, but because I felt like, well, that's your option. That's all you got. That's all that's there. And if you want support in this area, or if you need help in this area, or if you want to talk about this, like this is your option. You kind of have to stick with it and be okay with it. And so I was friends with this guy and had known him for a couple of years prior to that. And there was always something so freaking off about our interactions. I mean, the way I describe it is I feel like my skin was crawling just being around him. I just felt icky. I felt gross. I just felt uncomfortable. I had to tell him several times, like, hey, I really don't appreciate you flirting with me like that. Like, I'm just trying to live life and like do an oil change or like buy a car or like do these things. And like you said, like you wanted to be like of help. And like you're just like making comments about my body and just weirdness, right? But I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, I was just going off of how I felt on the inside, what it seemed like to me, how I felt around him. And yeah, there were signs like, the comments that he would make to me or how just kind of like forward and aggressive he was with the things that he was saying and how he would talk. And I'm just like, oh man, like, so I was working on my self-confidence then. This was around the time that I started picking up a lot of like self-development books and like self-help podcasts and, kind of was going down that road. And this was before I kind of did a 180 in who I am now. I was coming off of like a codependent relationship, long-term relationship from a couple of years prior. Hadn't bought my condo yet, was kind of in the unemployment in between jobs kind of thing. And I was just still trying to figure out me, and my place and everything. And these advances with this guy just was seeming so much to a point where, as I started like growing and gaining more confidence in myself and understanding myself more self-awareness, I remember having a therapy session with my therapist and I was like, I don't know what it is. I don't necessarily have a reason to be feeling this way. I was like, I think I've been raised a very tough bird. And so things that would traumatize people, I'm just like, yeah, it's like life, you guys. Like, what? Oh, this is like a big thing. Oh, yeah. I mean, sure. I guess it is. And it is, but whatever, I'll deal with it. I always kind of had that attitude. And so I was getting to a point where I was kind of turning into like this different person, more confident, more, resilient, more able to stand on my own 2 feet, more life experience for myself that, I gained from myself, not like from others, but, with help with my therapist. And I said, I don't understand. Like, I feel like an asshole. Like, I don't want to be friends with this person anymore. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want him to message me. He's messaging me every single day. I'm not that kind of friend with him. I feel like a dick. Like if he needed something or needed a friend, like I wouldn't want to be there for him. I wouldn't want to help him. Like he annoys me. He freaks me out. Like he's utterly obnoxious. Like I can't stand him. I really can't stand him. And I'm like, I'm not the kind of person who's just going to block someone and never respond again. Like I think people need to learn. People need to grow. Like how else would I learn? How else would I grow if I didn't have closure or a conversation about something? So we could talk in another episode about like blocking and closure and everything, but I'm not really an advocate of it. Maybe short term. That's like another conversation. And so I told my therapist, I'm like, I feel like a horrible person. I'm not the person that breaks up with people. I'm not the person that shuts people down. I'm not the person that rejects people. I'm the one that just takes, consumes, people pleases. Like other people do that to me, but I don't do that to them. So why am I feeling this way? Like, why do I want this connection out of my life? And what I love about my therapist is she says this over many different situations, but she said, Evelyn, you got to trust yourself. And I was like, oh, but that's so vague. Like, trust myself and trust yourself. But I don't have a reason. I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know why I'm so uncomfortable. Yeah, he flirts and it's annoying, but like I should be able to handle that. Evelyn, trust yourself. Well, I don't know how to word it. And So it was coming to a point where I was like, I need to say something to this guy. I was like, this is like excessive. And it was kind of crippling me a little bit. So I sent him a message and I said as nicely as I could, I don't have the message anymore, but it was something along the lines of like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm not really quite sure completely where this is coming from, but I do know that it's something that needs to be done. Like, I've been thinking about this for a long time. There's just something off that is making me feel like uncomfortable and I can't reciprocate the friendship that you're looking for. To be honest, like it's not even something where like I'll talk to you every once in a while. Like I just don't want to be talking at all to you. And so I was, kind of trying to tell him like, I'm sorry. I don't know what this means. I've never done this before. Like, I don't know why I feel this way. But it's just not right. And like, I wish you well. And I hope things go well for yourself. And I care for you as a human being. But like, I just got to like check out for a little bit. Like, no text messages every day. Like, I was text messaging him back to be polite, not because I wanted to. Oh, it was just like unnerving to me. And then I felt like I had to respond. It was just, that's like who I used to be. And it just took me like, oh my God, it probably took me 2 months before I finally got the nerve to actually send that. It took me a therapy session and then ruminating on how I was going to word it and going back and forth about trusting myself and like, why am I going off of this thing that I feel? Well, it came full circle today. So it was about 2 years later, and I had hit him up and I had said like, hey, I need to pay a software engineer. I would like to buy you dinner or breakfast or, whatever you need, or like pay for your time to go over to your place and learn these software programs so that I can try to save some money on an editor, or what I can actually learn that's user friendly and free, because technology freaks me out and scares me and I'm pretty insecure and I don't enjoy it at all. I'm not a fan. And so I had asked him if that was something I could do. And, I told my mentor, I was like, I really don't want to reach out to this person, but my friend who's actually like does this for a living, he's like, no, it can ruin our friendship, or you would just have to pay me my whole salary so that I don't work on anything else and I just work on yours. And I'm like, oh my God, like what? That's irrational. I can't do that. So I did my part. I tried to reach out to who I could. Didn't work. Reached out to this guy because I felt kind of like desperate. I was trying to avoid learning it on myself. I didn't know how I was going to take on every single aspect of doing a podcast by myself. To save money, to save time, to save, communications with people. I don't know, all the reasons, really. And so I had asked him if I could do that. And even though I was like, the first words out of his mouth, I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, I can't even like have a text message conversation with you. I can't, like, you're so utterly obnoxious. Like, I can't even do it. I can't. But then I had sent a follow-up. I said, by the way, when I was opening up my drive, I saw something very concerning and disturbing that you had sent me in an email. They were from a couple years ago. And I was trying to make sense of it, and it really freaked me out. And I was like, man, there must be a very reasonable explanation for this because this is kind of horrific. I had found like 30 to 40 images that he had taken of me without my consent or knowledge at all. Me in skirts and dresses and whatever the fuck I was wearing, just clothes, and specifically taking photos of the crotch, of the thighs, of the boobs, of the arms, just anything I think he would find fetishy. He had taken screenshots of my old Instagram account. And basically anything he thought was sexy, he made this like collage and collection of me. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and then on top of the cherry is he shared it with me. And I was like, what kind of sick and demented person would do this without my permission or knowledge? Knowledge was really freaked me out more for some reason. How did he do this? Why did he share it with me? And I'm supposed to pretend like this isn't horrifying? All these pictures of me, and by the way, completely unflattering, like not okay. And then I said, like, by the way, on top of like me wanting to pay for this, I'm like, I'm sure there's this very reasonable explanation for this, but can we talk about this? Like, what the hell is this? Like, why did you send this to me? Because once I saw it, I was like, ooh. And that also like freaked me out because I was like, how did I not see this before? Why am I only seeing this now? And he sent me a message like, oh, text me when you have time. I would understand if you wanted to delete my contact. And I just thought that was kind of funny because I was like, I sent him an audio message because I specifically had told him, like, this needs to be an in-person conversation or a phone call. Like, this is not something I'm doing over a text. And he's like, oh, tell me what's on your mind. I'm like, okay, obviously he's not giving me that opportunity. So I didn't text him. I called him. And he was working, and I knew he was working. And I was like, well, in the grand scheme of things, like, you could take off 5 minutes knowing the type of schedule that he had. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to talk about this. He said, text me when you have time. Okay, well, this is when I had time. I had 20 minutes on the road to give him my time and talk about this because I didn't want to talk about this when I got home. And he basically told me that it was a dark time in his life. I was the only one who did it to, which made it sound way worse. Then he pulled the whole like, I'm sorry because I got caught kind of thing. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I deleted it all, and I got help for I don't know what he called that. I forget. I mean, it was so just like overwhelmed by somebody violating me like that, I guess, And he was like, I was going through a dark spot. My therapist said, this is how I cope with life and stress and loss. And, and I was asking him questions like, I said, but like, I'm just curious. I'm like, you're finding it sexy because he kept referring to me as porn. Oh, it was just porn. I was like, what do you mean it's just porn? Bro, I'm not porn. You're calling me porn. I am Evelyn. I am not posing for you. I'm not a model. I'm not in this industry. Like, I am not porn. I am someone who used to be your friend. So why are you telling me like, oh, it was supposed to be deleted. It was a time in my life. And it was this thrill that I got of taking your picture without you knowing. And that was part of the chase, or the thrill was chasing after something I couldn't have. That was like a fantasy of his. Seems kind of fucked up and perverse to me, but whatever. Also, I'm trying to like analyze that. This is a guy who's inherently not a psychopath, not a sociopath. He's the person driving next to your car. He's your coworker. This is just like a human that's talking. Has a daughter in college. I mean, like quote, normal, average dude, right? You know, and he's telling me, no, like, I was like, how do you get how is it a fantasy how are you getting your rocks off to doing something that somebody didn't give you permission for? I am literally denying you, and that's turning you on. Oh, it was a difficult conversation. I noticed something weird about me when it happened. I was like, wow, Evelyn, you've gone through so much trauma and shit in your life that you're able to like have a mature, grown-ass adult conversation about this and like talk to him rationally. I mean, yeah, I was able to like call him out on things that were like very distasteful. And I let him know. And I said, like, bro, like, you're sorry because you got caught. You keep saying you're sorry because it should have been deleted. I'm like, where did your therapist tell you when this happened, supposedly, that you got over this a year ago and now you're like redeemed and better? What part of that process was where you go back to the person and you say, hey, I did this. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry. Can we move on? I was like, where was that conversation? No, you just thought you were going to delete the evidence, and then never have to worry about it again. And I chuckled when I told him this. I said, wow, talk about full circle. And I didn't mean to like toot my own horn in front of him because he was in a pretty low place when he was telling me all of this. But I'm thinking like, I don't really care what low place you're in. Like you knew exactly what you were doing and you didn't try to make it better. And I'm just like, I said, I hope you know now, this is why I need to stick to my guns. This is why I told you I didn't want to be your friend anymore. Because I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't figure out what it was, but this was it. And myself knew, my gut knew. And yes, I had some signs, but I wasn't like able to like, fuck, my mind didn't go that extreme. I was like, yeah, like what guy's not like masturbating, thinking about a girl, like, ew, I don't want to think about it. Gross. I don't want to think about it. Yes, I know my friends do that with me, but I don't want to think about it. But that was just like next level, you know, screenshotting various pictures of me or taking pictures of the times we were hanging out and just putting it in a porn file. And oh God. Anyways. And he's like, yeah, no, I wouldn't blame you. Like, I understand if you never want to talk to me again. You know, I should have been upset. And I was more upset a couple days ago. And then I was upset when I had the confirmation that this is like what actually happened. Because he had no idea that I knew that this was shared with me. But I chuckled and I laughed at myself because I was like, wow, Evelyn, this was an actual hurdle for you. You felt nervous and uncomfortable to say no to somebody because other people do that to you, but you don't do that to them. And that was in a different place in your life where you were so much about like, love everyone. I don't care who it is. Be good to everyone. Forgive everyone. Love everyone. Help anyone. Like, put other people's needs before yours or try to juggle yours at the same time because that's what loving people means. That's what being a good person is. That's what being a good human and kind, compassionate is. Blah, blah, blah. It took me many years and a lot of trauma to realize there's a balance and there's a fine line. And, you know, it's kind of a case-by-case basis. But I was chuckling at myself when we were on the phone because I'm like, wow, look at how far you've come. It didn't make sense to you then, and it was agonizing you, how you thought you were being a horrible human being because you had to like stand up for yourself, something that felt really off-putting. And it didn't make sense to you then. And well, it made sense now why you weren't connected with him anymore. And every time he would reach out, you just like, I should at least heart the comment to let him know that I'm being polite and acknowledging him as a human being, but like, go away. And then before I was on the phone with him, I was like, oh yeah, well, now he should feel so bad and he should owe me and he should come to my house and drive in traffic and he should like not charge me and help me do this. And I was like, oh my God, Evelyn, like, that was just my emotions like getting to me. And now I'm back to square one. And now I'm going to look for an editor and figure out how I'm going to do all that. So that'll be contingent on this, if this is episode 1 or episode 3. We'll see how that goes. But it came full circle, right? And I think my point to this story, in part, there's a lot you could take from this. But I think some of what I was thinking was, and I told him this, I said, the truth really does set you free. And that whole principle of things coming full circle. Do you really think something can eat you up inside or eat somebody else up inside? Make you mad, make you crazy, make you obsessive, make you ruminate, make you just kind of lose it, you know? Can you really think about something habitually or stress about something and not have it come back to bite you in the butt? Do all people that cheat get caught? Do some never get caught? Whether you're trying to get caught or not. Does the truth set you free? Do things come full circle? It wasn't on my timeline. That happened like 2 years ago. And for a long time, I was like, man, I just feel like an asshole. Why am I turning this guy away and not being a good human being? Not a good friend, but just a good human being. I couldn't figure it out. And I couldn't figure out why I needed to separate. Now I know why. And so, yeah, I chuckled and it made me think, if things come full circle, if the truth does set you free, where else in my life am I stuck or concerned or in a loop? And I think about one of my exes. I make this joke. It's a lighthearted joke and self-deprecating joke I make with myself. I don't know, as a way to cope, or maybe it's just slightly darkly funny. It's not funny at all, but it's funny. Whatever. I'm just going to say the joke. I would say, and I believe it, that my ex would rather take a hot poker or an ice pick to his eye and stab his eye out and go blind than to have a conversation with me. I'm not saying what kind of, I'm just saying to be in my presence, to have a conversation with me, to have closure, to resolve our unresolved conflict. And I thought to myself, when I thought of this situation with this editor, after so many years, how can my ex be so lividly mad? Just so ready to just like jump at me and like yell and scream and fight and call me horrible names. How could this person wish you dead after like 5 years? How could they truly rather poke their eye out than have a conversation with you that lasts a couple minutes, couple hours, a couple days, and then you're done? How is that possible? Is it possible that we will ever speak again, that we will ever both get the closure that we need or want so we can understand each other better? And then I was like, no, Evelyn, don't go down this rabbit hole. You went T-minus a week without thinking about him and had a really great therapy session about him, And then I thought to myself, I have reached the point where I've accepted that we won't be back together. I've moved on. I've accepted our fate. And I think, ironically, as I've moved on and I'm not in love with him anymore, I think that is when, when I separated from him, finally, is when I thought about him, not in like a romantic, loving way, but more like, maybe we will come back and have a conversation, because how can you bury something so deep and not expect it to float back up to surface? It's just a thought that I'd like you to think about. What are you avoiding in your life? What do you not want to deal with? What is an insecurity of yours that maybe isn't even true, but what are you worried about doing or starting? Mine would have been, I will go down this rabbit hole of finding people that I can't even stand to be in the same room with, to pay them to do what I need done for my podcast, just to avoid learning software on my own, teaching myself how to do this. Sitting in a room, getting frustrated with nobody to the left or right of me, knowing that I don't have anyone to call to say, hey, how do you do this? How do you make this work? How am I going to progress my full-time job and try to start this podcast? And how am I going to make this work when I can't figure out how to edit or how to move things around? Like, how am I all of a sudden going to be a professional editor and ready to send this out? I was jumping through hoops to try to avoid doing that. So I have to contend with that. I think those are like the little things that it's like life's lessons. And it's funny to me because I had a therapy session last week with my therapist about my ex. And I said, like, therapist, person's name. I said, am I going down a rabbit hole? Am I okay? Like, am I not in a good place? Like, we have a session once a month. You wanted to have it the next week. Does that mean something's happening to me? Are you seeing signs of a psychotic episode? She's like, no. She's like, I think you just needed to talk about this. I think this was important and you needed to get some stuff off your chest. And it really, 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 really helped. Really helped. But I asked her towards the end of our session, I said, well, how do I believe that I can find somebody, that person exists, that I will not only see somebody I'm interested in, but they will also be interested, that I will actually be at the same place at the same time as them to even meet them or interact. And that's not even including like compatibility and all of that. How do I know that the next person is not going to just be another lesson to learn? That this life thing just wants to keep giving me lessons, learn all of these lessons, which I thought I already learned, and I think I did. But how can I feel like the next person is somebody that I could really invest my time and energy and love, when it could just be another lesson? And because I didn't learn the lesson, I'm just going to be meeting all these like people that I'm, not compatible with. What would be the point if my ex wasn't for me and we weren't supposed to be together, but he shaped me and changed me and brought up a lot of things within myself and made me want to kind of be a different person who's not as like, conventionally fit to this like societal whatever. I said, the universe, who I told her I didn't believe in God anymore. I said, the universe put him in my life, not for us to love each other, but for the sole purpose of being a lesson. I was like, fuck that. I said, why would I dare want to love somebody again or believe that person exists? So aren't they just going to be another lesson? But I guess it depends on what the lesson is. And she seemed to think, no, she's like, the next person won't be a lesson, that I've learned that lesson, but that the lesson between my two exes was that one was the opposite of the other. One was, you have a life, you have a picture and a dream of what you want, and that's all that matters. Make that vision in your head. Make it happen. That's what you think will make you happy. That's what you think that you want. That's what you are striving for, thinking about, chasing. That's what you want. But I was in a situation where I had the life I wanted, but not the person that I wanted. So I thought that if I had the life that I wanted, it didn't matter about the person. It mattered. But the flip side of that was, then I had the person that I wanted, but not the life that I wanted. And which one ended up resonating with me more? That it wasn't as important about the life and how that looked, but was more important about the quality and the content of the person that I loved. And that's what always stuck with me. And so I think to myself sometimes now, would you be compatible with someone who was dirt poor? Would you be compatible with someone who lived with their family? Would you be compatible, with somebody who lives on a different continent? If they really fucking loved you and you really fucking loved them and you were extremely passionate about that person, for me, it's always been about the person. I'm not necessarily pansexual, but I like people based off of who they are, not a laundry list of qualities of what they possess. So I don't think some people are replaceable, to be honest. That's just my opinion. Some people are priceless and they're valuable. And so with my type of personality, I'm very passionate and I will do whatever I can to keep that person in my life. In the past, that probably came off smuggling. My passion was intense sometimes. That was the problem I had with an ex. It was too new for me. It was too... Oh, man. I had come out of my mom's womb at like fucking 21 years old and then was like, hey, figure out all of life. Anyways, so the lesson that I thought was really awesome that she brought up to me was one relationship was to show you not to settle and that this is what life would look like if you do. Yes, you think this person fits this mold, looks good to your family, represents a good look to your friends, has these awards, does this for themselves, looks good on paper, has these qualities. But you were settling because you wanted the life, you wanted the picturesque status, whatever. And it took me way too long to realize I was fucking miserable. I was coping at a very young age in ways that I didn't know how, and it just led to a disaster. I needed a therapist. I needed solid friends. I needed people to talk to about how I was feeling, and I didn't have that at the time. And I just kept it in and tried to be a good girl and tried to be loyal and tried to be this and that, and I just fucked it all up. That was the first lesson of that relationship. The second that I couldn't figure out for years and years and years. Psychics tried to tell me and wanted me to pay money or wanted, to leave a hook so that I would come back and spend more money. And then they would tell me this lavish story about what the lesson was and then tells me the story. And then when I told them this doesn't make sense, I'm trying to understand this. Like I want to learn and grow and learn from this. And they're like, oh, I just told you all of that. Not because it was true, but because it was just a lesson. It was just supposed to be a lesson for you. Well, then what's the lesson, psychic? Oh, you're going to have to figure that out yourself. What the fuck? What kind of journey did you have me go on? Sorry, it's a tangent. It drives me crazy. The second lesson, which seems to be the hardest to learn for me, was you can be that passionate about somebody. You can love somebody that much. That passion and love exists on that level like that. And that is what is important to you and that is what you want. And it might not be attached to a certain lifestyle or a certain commitment or a certain job or a certain status or a certain money or a certain look. But that is not the point about the person. It's about how you feel. And so going forward, I will be trying to find that middle ground of how am I not going to settle and how am I not going to be overly passionate about somebody. That was kind of connected, kind of not, kind of a tangent. But why am I saying all this? When people say we don't know what the future holds, we really don't. And been told I'm a very black and white thinker, this or that thinker, one extreme to the other. I was like, I don't understand. This doesn't make sense to me. I'm just not going to be friends with this person anymore. Forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Closed chapter, done, bye. Well, it came back full circle today. And it made me wonder what else could come back full circle. Not to say that it always will, but it's certainly nice when it does. It's nice when the truth sets you free. And for me, the way I've always been is I'd rather know the truth, even if it's painful. I want the honest to God truth, even if you're an asshole. And to me, I can't call somebody an asshole who's telling me the truth. Someone who's trying to spare my feelings. Someone who's going to tell me what they think I want to hear. Someone who's lying to me. Someone who's trying to, someone who's not being honest and they're just trying to guess or assume what I want them to see or say. To me, those people are assholes. That's why I can't do psychics anymore. That's why I can't do psychics anymore. So that's that. I'd like to hope that this will kind of connect. I think I just wanted to share a story with you to see, was this helpful to know that you could be struggling with something and have it not really make sense, but give you hope that maybe one day it will make sense. And remember, it's not going to happen in your timeline. It's going to happen on a random day when you're trying to accomplish something. But that's the funny thing about life. Can you really avoid it? I'm going to have to sit down. I'm going to have to be uncomfortable. I'm going to have to figure out how to edit. I'm going to have to play with technology. And God forbid, I will spend 30 more hours trying to figure out how to do it without AI. I want to learn something. I want to be better. I don't want to take the easy way out. But I was scared. I didn't want to deal with it. And it made doing the podcast or do all the other things not manageable and not fun. And it just seemed overwhelming. And just because I wanted to avoid doing this part that was scary and hard. And I think going back to that conversation I had with that guy, I don't want to be just like what everybody else is doing. I could have just blocked him. Maybe there was a balance between not feeling like you had to be polite and also not block him. I'm not somebody who's just going to ignore you. If somebody really did something very damaging or somebody hurt you or you were afraid for your life, block those motherfuckers. And in a situation where I was afraid for my life, yes, there were people that I blocked, but there were also times where I blocked people because I was upset or I was hurt or I needed to not message them and lash out. And I needed time for myself to collect my thoughts or to recover from hurt feelings. But I always unblocked after that eventually. They don't know that. They don't need to know that. If they wanted to reach out, they could. And they'd be like, oh, look at that. She's not blocked. And I also have another rule for myself. If you're going to block them on text, don't block them on social media. Or you're going to block them on social media, don't block them on text. Or block them on text and social media, but keep the email open. If somebody really, really felt like they needed to get a hold of you, or if something was really harming them, something was not coming across, everybody learns and processes things differently. If someone's genuinely trying to make an effort with you, are you going to let them in? Or are you going to just say, see ya, that's how you learn? And I thought that the conversation I had with that editor today was an interesting one. I had my emotions. I had my feelings. I thought what I felt, and so did he. But I wanted to have a conversation. I wanted to understand. And I was also curious. Oh, you're not a psychopath. You're not a sociopath. You're not necessarily a pedophile. You're certainly a creep. But let's talk about why you're a creep. Why are you a creep? I basically went to the creep and said, why are you a creep? And I think that made me think about more avenues in my life, what I'm avoiding, what are things I can't let go of, or what are things that I thought I let go of and let go of as much as I could, but why does it keep coming back? And I'm still working on what that looks like and what that means. And so we'll find out together. I think what I really like about doing this podcast is, you know, when you listen to a lot of these people with all this advice and all this money and all these fancy cameras and all this setup, you're seeing them when they're already at their peak. They might not necessarily think that is their peak, but they are going to let you know that this is their level of achievement and they have reached success. Now, yeah, that's, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, or success is contingent on like an individual and what they think about, what they think about themselves. I got a million people that would tell me, oh, you could stop and be where you are just now and you'd be fine. I'd be like, oh my God, if this is all I did, I'd be a complete waste and failure for myself. But that's just because of who I am and where I'm trying to go and what I want to be for myself. But this podcast for me is the engagement, the connections, the conversations that you and I will have when you comment about wanting to talk about certain topics, or if you have an opinion about something, like that's great. We're going to go down this road together. And I think I'm doing this for myself, obviously, but I'm doing this for the people who are myself, really, but are maybe not me, maybe me 5 or 10 years ago, that are like, hey, I want to make a change. I want to improve my life. I want to believe things are possible, and I want to believe that I'm capable. How can I do that? Well, I'm not going to show you from a mansion or a expensive high-rise studio all these fancy lights and jingles and doodads. I'm going to show you as someone who's just like you, and we're going to kind of go through this journey together, and we're going to see how it happens. And there are some times where I'm going to talk about things after a crazy day at work. Or I'm going to have an episode where I'm like, you guys, this was really bothering me. Remember when this was bothering me in episode 2? Well, look what just happened in episode 28. I think this is a journey that we're going to go on together. And we're going to see how life kind of progresses and how things work out. And it's going to be messy and dirty and vulnerable and raw and passionate. And sometimes you're going to get me when I'm really stressed and really overwhelmed. And sometimes you're going to get me when I'm really quiet and tired and sad. And then other times you're going to get me when I'm like happy and, you know, need to burn off some energy and have things that I want to say. And then a whole spectrum in between. And to me, that's the fun part about this journey, is that I've been always known to send people audio messages. God, most of them hate it. Some of them find them to be hysterical. But in a world where texting just doesn't cut it anymore, what, am I really going to have a conversation about how you're a creeper in a text message? What? No. Plus, you know, you don't know all the details. You don't know other than what's right in front of you. You rarely see what's right in front of you. But imagine having a conversation with somebody and hearing their tone, understanding why they're doing things. Not everybody's going to be honest with you. But you got to do what you can to move on and learn from it. And if something doesn't feel right, if you cannot let something go after years, question it. Why? If you are trying to stick to your guns and your gut and you think something's off and you need to stop doing something or stop seeing someone or work on a different project or take a different career move or stop talking to that family member. Take that chance, take that leap of faith. And we are both here together in this. Last thing I want to say and kind of wrap up is there were 2 times in my life as an adult, strictly talking about when I was an adult, 2 times in my life where I didn't have family and friends to lean on. I had absolutely nobody except for me and my cat, who I'm in love with. But what I did have was my drive, my stubbornness, my passion and will to live, to be curious, to at least be curious to see how it all plays out. That curiosity is maybe what kind of kept me going, kept me alive long enough to where it was sustainable. Coming back to it, there were times in my life where I did not have friends or family I could rely on. And if I did, it was the bare minimum, and it was not necessarily the help that I needed to get me through. I had to crawl out of a very dark place on my own. And I knew that even though I didn't trust doctors and I didn't like hospitals and I didn't like my old therapist that I had, and she was upcharging me and manipulative and totally in it for profit. And I was just like frustrated. And I was like, why would I go to a therapist when I just had a bad experience with one? Why would I go to a doctor and listen to what they had to say when I had a bad experience with 2? So I'm in my hole. And after several months of contacting anyone and everyone to try to get help, because it didn't even matter anymore if I wanted it. It was, desperate times calls for desperate measures kind of thing. And only one person got back to me, and that was my therapist. And that woman, man, you got to do anything you can to try to keep your health insurance, because she only accepts my health insurance. And she's been a blessing in my life. I'll just say that. And when you're willing to learn and you're willing to put in the work, like I said, I didn't have friends and family to go to, but a stranger gave me a chance and saw something and believed in me. And that's truly all I needed to try to pick myself up. When I didn't believe in myself, when I thought things were impossible, when I didn't think I was capable, I turned to her. Not my mom, not my dad, not my aunt, not my grandma, not my cousins, not my friends, not to the people closest to me, but a complete stranger. And we talked every single week for 3 years. And now we talk once a month. And she knows me better than anybody else. And so when she talks to me, I'm like, okay, listen to this woman, because she knows what she's talking about. She knows you. It might be hard to know that there's help that you need, and you don't know if people are going to understand you or judge you. But the person you want to make your most self-proud of is yourself. And at the end of the day, what I've realized is if you're making yourself happy and you're not hurting yourself or hurting other people, that's like the only rule, then be a slut, be a millionaire, be in a polyamorous relationship, have 5 kids, go move into the middle of nowhere. Whatever you want to do, it really doesn't matter. That part is up to you. It really doesn't matter. As long as it's fueling you. So I'm going to start to try to make this podcast happen, and I'm going to make a commitment to myself and to you that I'm not going to stop until it's helping even just one person, because I know where I was at when I was robbed, and they took everything in my life. And I remember this moment where I looked down at this phone, this temporary phone that my dad gave me, and I went to contacts, and there was no contacts, not even one name Nobody was in my contacts. Who was I going to call if there was no one to call? You can start from there. You can start wherever you are. And that things can get better. And I think one of the beautiful things about podcasts is there's a reason why you came here. There's a reason why you listened. I just want to give you a shout out for a minute because you want to be better for yourself. You want to have more fun. You want to relax more. You want to laugh more. You want to understand more. You want to grow more. You want to figure things out. You don't want life to be such a bitch, so overwhelming, so challenging. How can we do this together alone? So I'm going to end with a quote. Kind of made me think about this. I'm going to give credit to Scott Fitzgerald, which is, for what it's worth, it's never too late, or in my case, too early to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. You can start whenever you want. You can change or you could stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. We can make the best of it or the worst of it. I hope you make the best of it. I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things that you've never felt before. I hope you meet people who have a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. And if you're not, I hope you have the courage to start over again. I'm looking forward to the next time when I can talk to you guys, and I'll catch you guys next week. You take care. You have a great week. Make yourselves proud. Do something for yourself. Love yourself. Tell me one way that you loved yourself this week in the comments. Tell me one challenge that you had that you're either still working through or you overcame. Tell me one thing that you liked or something that made you think in the comments. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. Let's create a community. If you like what somebody said, like it, share it, comment it, be kind, be curious. Let's create something, you guys. Take care.
All right, it's your turn. Let's do this. I know how to love, 'cause in my dreams I was taught by you. I know how to love, 'cause in my dreams I was taught by you. Just spend a little time with me, and maybe you will see that I'm just a little more than sweet. Just spend a little time with me, and maybe you will see that I'm just a little different and naive. Just spend a little time with me, and maybe you will see just temporary